Mikey Campbell, we've actually gone back quite a while, because I reached out to you maybe 2 years ago when I had a concept called Conversations from the Cave, and I'll go into that shortly. But when I was in a pretty dark place, as a father, husband, entrepreneur, all that sort of stuff. And mate, we've connected then. Things have come back around. We're reconnecting again. Who, like, for the guys who are watching, like, who is Mike Campbell?
The big question. But absolutely right. And that's the initial point is, we have these little very surface level connections. And I think with social media these days, we are able to connect with a lot of people. One of my personal kind of challenges is to ensure that I'm having depth of connection as well. It's not just spreading it in these kind of little surface level conversations. So who is Mike Campbell? Well, Mike Campbell is, I'm just going to stop talking in the third person. I am incredibly passionate about supporting men and connecting to who they really are and not who they think they're supposed to be. And it all kind of stems from I'm very curious by nature. I'm very considered, like to figure things out. And when I started working with men a long time ago, about 12, 13 years ago as a personal trainer, I soon found that human behavior was pretty fascinating to me and figuring people out. And when men mostly were coming to me with some kind of physical desire, it didn't take me long to figure out there's something beneath that. And so, there's a niche there that I just had to keep scratching. And so slowly over time, I was working on myself as a man, asking, what I was about, what I'm best to do, what I stand for, all that kind of stuff. But it led me to realizing, man, us men are in a strange place. Physically, we're not where we want to be. Mentally, we're not where we want to be. And if we want to try and change, it's a pretty tricky, confronting, confusing place. So as I was kind of going through some work of my own and realizing that I had lived a pretty safe upbringing, been very stubborn, very, very afraid of change and new things. And a big transition for me was leaning into that stuff, leaning into discomfort and challenging myself to grow. Part of that was I was seeing this in men. We were at this point that I was finding in myself, and my friends and my clients of just like, life's okay, but just accepting that. And so I was questioning myself, and I dove into what is it with us men, and I really found that we are struggling to figure out what it is to be a man and find our own true direction. And so really what I am about now is supporting men to step into being their own man, not this version we think we're supposed to be. So that's kind of, me, what I'm up to, and that's how I've, created my coaching program, the School of Personal Mastery. But my big kind of passion project, I suppose, at the moment, which is Beyond the Beers, conversations with men that break the stereotype. And that's really just about normalizing, breaking the surface and getting into the more meaningful conversations for us kind of everyday blokes.
Awesome.
That's me. Yes, Beyond the Beers. Because we love a beer. We love to chat on the surface. Women, sport, movies, men, like whatever it is. Surface level stuff, right? And so I think the more we can see two men or more men going into the more meaningful stuff. Doesn't need to be the most, earth-shattering, serious, deep conversation, but just stuff that's a bit more meaningful.
The real shit.
Yeah. And you'll know, and I know, because I've been there and I am there still. When you see someone go first, it gives us permission to go, maybe I can do that. It's not too hard. Right? And I see that's, exactly what's happening with you. So I would love to know. Give me a bit more of Ben, please.
Yeah, man. I'm glad you asked. Mate, you mentioned the subject around, men that are disconnected and so forth. And it's, 6 years ago, that was me. Like, I became that sedated man. Like, you start to, what I see is that men are all basing themselves on this class of average that's out there. So it's, the marriage isn't working or my partnership's not great. That's okay. That's just normal. I never have time for my kids, because I'm always working. That's just normal. My business, I'm really busy. I'm working ridiculous hours. I've got to work till 10 o'clock at night. That's what the average guy is doing. It's okay. You know, I've put on some extra weight. I barely go to the gym. I eat shit food. That's normal and it's okay. And it's this average and this sedation of man who's just gone, like, we've just fucking given up. And, you know, 5 years ago before, like, and prior to having kids, I felt like I had my shit together. Right? Like I was, you know, active and I was into sport and health and fitness and well-being. You know, I'd started a couple of businesses. I was just passionate about life. I was always out there, but there was something that was brewing. And then my wife and I, we had our first child, and that just threw a fucking spanner in the works. Like, especially as men, like you're reaching out to ask men how to be a dad. Most men don't know because they're not dads. They're just kind of there. And that led me into the last 5 or 6 years of my own personal discovery, which I call like climbing out of this cave and rising to become a king, where I fucking had to ask those bigger questions you were talking about. I had to dig in and ask, like, who am I? What do I actually want? What does it mean to be an actual man in today's day and age? And that this story that we paint around average is no longer good enough. And who I am today is like a man who lives with purpose. I have passion. I strive to be the best husband I can be. I've still got a lot of work to do. I'm fucking not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Same with being a father. You know, like, what is fatherhood? How do I mentor my children? How do I be there as a father for my son? And then it's a completely different game with my daughter. You know, 2 young kids, you can't just do the same thing, but it's like always stepping up and asking the bigger questions to help them. But then also myself, you know, fitness and well-being. It's not okay to walk around, you know, half sedated, fucking with, you know, carrying a lot of fat, a lot of weight, drinking a lot of piss, all those sort of things. It's, you've actually got to live up to a particular type of standard. I created my own standard a year ago, which I call the King's Code, which is a set of 7 values that I live by. And that holds me accountable every single day. Yeah, and one of the big things that I do with this is, you know, coaching men, especially those that feel stuck or are lost, through this type of philosophy that I live by, the Rising Kings philosophy, through that. And 2 of the key things that came up for me personally was really around pornography. You know, sedate, like we as men in everything that we do, again, we think it's okay to look at pornography. I was chatting with a client not long ago who's coming along to the next Rising Kings Code Black event, struggling with his relationship and all that sort of stuff. I was like, how often do you look at porn? It was just like fucking shocked. Like, who's this guy to ask me that type of question? Yeah. You know, and this is brutal honesty. Like, how often? It's like, you know, it's probably 5 or 6 times a week. I was like, that's an addiction. He's like, yeah, but every guy does it. Like, it doesn't matter. It's a fucking addiction. Like, pornography is destroying your relationship with your partner right now. And he was, you know, blown away, but it never thought of it. It never thought of that thing. Also, too, with alcohol, you know, like drinking 2 or 3 beers a night just to numb the pain.
Yeah, and it's so much more than that, right? Like porn, alcohol, 2 obvious things, but there's so much that we will do to numb and distract ourselves. Yeah. So TV and other things, vices, but for a lot of men, it's also just being busy. Like, it's so easy to be busy, right? And by keeping ourselves busy, we don't have to address the real shit. And so it's easy to do that, right? Because otherwise, if we have to, you know, look in the mirror, be alone with our thoughts, which is something seems so innocent and almost stupid, but a lot of men are not alone with their thoughts. Take your phone to the shitter, have their real clarity of thought in the shower, because it's like the only time in the day where you don't have something distracting you, right?
Agreed. Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing. Is like, for my turnaround was asking the question, like, what do you want? Like, what do you actually want? Because every single guy I've asked before, you go and ask, like a guy on the street, like, what do you actually want? Like 5 years from now, what do you want? 99% of the guys, they can't give you an answer. They don't even know what they want fucking today. Let alone tomorrow or 5 years from now, even 1 year from now. It's just, we get caught up in this stuck mentality of just going through the grind, just, you know, every day, just moving forward, doing whatever we think we need to do, you know, and not asking and stopping to ask those bigger questions, like you said before.
So then for you, you know, like, I'm keen to share this recording with a few guys in our community. So what would you say? Cool. So a bit of awareness there. What's 1 to 2 things that men can actually start doing to connect with this?
The first thing, like my number one, like piece in terms of the King's Code is just truth.
Mm-hmm.
Actually starting to tell the truth on everything. And it's like if you haven't used your truth muscle for quite some time, which most men haven't, it's like learning to go to the gym again or learning to walk again. Like it's fucking hard. Like when someone asks you a question, and I found this, I used to catch up with mates. How's everyone going? Oh, yeah, everything's good, man. Everything's good. Yeah, wife's good. Kids are good. And I used to leave there feeling like almost a state of depression because I'm like, fuck, why is everyone good? And yet my wife and I aren't connected. I'm not there for my kids. I'm working my fucking ass off. I'm trying to run a business, all this sort of shit. Until one day when we started asking this question, like, how's everyone going? Good. And then they came to me and like, how are you? I was like, fuck, man, not great. Like I'm really fucking struggling right now. I don't even know where to begin. And all of a sudden it was like this liberation for me personally. Like I started to tell the truth. Like that was my starting point because once you admit to it, you know what you need to start doing. So it's like, if your marriage isn't working, then what are the things you need to start doing? Who do you need to start speaking with?
Yeah.
And the same goes.
Absolutely, right? Who do I potentially need to seek support from? Because one of the things that we believe is, this is me, I've got all my shit sorted, I need to be able to do it myself, but we can't, and that's okay.
Yeah, and it's the truth, like you said there before, right? So most guys won't tell the truth because they're shit scared of the real answer. That everything's not great. Nothing is great. Nothing's easy. I'm not fulfilled, not really connected. But I sort of think if, when I get my promotion in a year or 2 years' time, like everything will be better then. Or I'll, go and do X, Y, Z or meet this person or do something or get married and everything will be better then. Or we'll have our first child and everything will be better then. And you go on this ridiculous, like endless climb to realize that that's not going to fucking solve anything. So truth is one of them. The other one is commitment. So another key pillar for me, like the 2 things that I'd give to anyone watching this is, one is truth. Like you got to start calling yourself out on your own bullshit and lies. And that goes into every conversation, even the conversations you're having at work. If someone says you're having a good day today, right? Firstly, it's like, do you give a shit if I'm having, like, are you genuinely asking me if I'm having a good day? Because I will tell you the answer. And most people are thrown away because they're like, oh, I was kind of just saying it. And you're like, cool.
Filling in space.
Whereas some will say, yeah, I'm genuinely interested in, are you having a good day? And that's where you tell the truth. No, I'm not.
Yeah.
And that's
so then with that, where these things combine for you in terms of, first of all, making that as a commitment to yourself.
What's that, sorry?
Making that as a commitment to yourself.
Absolutely. Truth. Like just starting the truth. Truth is liberation. Once you're liberated and start telling the truth, like it's this anxiety, stress, depression, unfulfillment, all this stuff starts to melt away. And then the second one, as I said before, is like, it's all about commitment. I think everything with men is like, we're just kind of doing stuff at the moment. Every man's kind of showing up. Everyone's kind of looking to form a better life, kind of going to work, kind of being a dad, kind of being a husband or partner, kind of being a good bloke, kind of listening, kind of being present. Like my big thing is just, it's fucking commitment. You're either all in or you're not in at all. Like you're all out. And so when it comes to this, if you're serious about stepping the fuck up, fixing your life, like finding fulfillment as a man, like one is truth and the other one is commitment. It's like, okay, I'm ready to go to hell and back to sort this shit out because it's not an easy ride. It's uncomfortable, like you said. It hurts. It's doing the work, and it's doing the work. It's not like, oh, all of a sudden you get to like, cool, I'm a man now. I know exactly where I need to be. I can just go on cruise mode. You and I both know, like it's the endless journey until the day you die. Like I'm still doing work every single day, 6 years later, still pushing hard. Like, what do you actually want? Why do you want it? How are you going to get it? How are you showing up as a dad? How are you showing up as a brother? How are you showing up as a father, and et cetera, et cetera. And so how, like, same vice versa, brother. Like what are some things like some advice you could give to guys, especially with all the stuff you've taken on through Beyond the Beers over
here? Yeah. And look, so for me, Beyond the Beers is about exactly what you're talking about there, right? we are so good at just giving the, how's it going? Yeah, good. Right? And not actually connecting. No, seriously, how are you going?
Yeah.
Right? Or, and this is what's most important for us, I find, is that you've got to lead. So instead of, no, really, how are you going? Actually sharing how you are going. Right? When we lead, we give others permission, especially for us guys. Because one of the things, and this is probably one of the most fundamental things for me, is we care too much about what other people think.
Yeah.
Therefore, we don't speak our truth, right? Therefore, we don't be honest with ourselves, right? Because we're living a version of ourselves that we think is the one that will be accepted. We think the one that will be seen as a man, as enough. But the most important opinion about you is yourself. And so that is the one to hold up the mirror and go, what do I think about me? But we just give too much of a shit about what other people think. And of course, there's a difference between being obsessed over what people think and being completely indifferent and apathetic. And we're not talking about all or nothing because it doesn't generally work. But what do you think of you? And then who are the few people in this world whose opinions really matter to you? Like for me, Nadia, my partner, is one of those people, but not all the time. Sometimes her opinion carries no weight, and I determine that, right? So planting your feet and taking ownership of who you are and starting to actually show up in the world as that, which, you know, extends on what you're talking about in terms of speaking the truth.
Yeah.
But that means being introspective. So for me, the fundamentals really are start diving into this stuff. And with Beyond the Beers, it's about, you know, facilitating that and doing it in your life with people. But the most important person to go beyond the surface with is yourself. Ask yourself those tough questions. What am I about? What do I stand for? What are my values? Right? What do I want out of life? What brings me purpose? All this kind of stuff that you're talking about. And actually be honest with yourself and just pay attention. To start with, you don't need to have, you know, earth-shattering answers. You don't need to step out tomorrow and go, I'm super clear on my path in life. But you've got to start.
Yeah.
Right? And so you just got to pay attention. We pay attention, we increase awareness. Once we increase awareness, then we can start to manage how we show up through our thoughts, our words, and our actions. And so that's kind of the process. But for me, it just kind of starts with going, you know what? I'm going to allow myself to drop all of that care on what other people think, because that is what holds me back.
Yeah.
From showing up, from acting.
Why do you think men like to act? Like, what is it? What's going on? Like, why are these guys wanting to act? Like, we think we're men, we're brave, bravado, macho, ego. We got all this shit that we fucking carry on with. And
we've learned that.
We feel like we've got to hide and act.
Yeah, so we've learned that. I just think, you know, from a very young age, and, you know, for anyone who wants to look into it, there's some great resources out there now. For example, the documentary that's on Netflix in Australia now called The Masculinity sums this up really well. But essentially, you know, when we're young boys, we learn a very, very narrow image of what it is to be a man, which essentially is, you know, harden up, toughen up, don't be a pussy, all that kind of stuff. It teaches us to hide any emotive side, and to be tough is to be a man. And so that thickens. We take that on. We choose to wear that suit of armor. And so we think that to be accepted into the tribe, so to speak, we need to be this certain version. And one of the reasons I believe that we see men walking around like you were describing, kinda, is because it's fucking exhausting trying to pretend that you've got your shit together.
Yeah.
When you don't. Because fundamentally, none of us do. Yes. Some more so than others, but it's a scale. I'm working on the shit, but as you said, right, my coaching program is a school of personal mastery. But mastery isn't a point. It's not somewhere we reach.
Yeah.
It's the journey. And that's what it's about.
Yeah, it's a good, valid point. Like, I think one of the biggest things that has helped me, and I think a lot of the guys that I've worked with, is when you let go of that end destination. That it's like, I've come to this commitment for myself that I do this shit till the day literally till the day till my mind is either gone crazy and I have no idea what the fuck's going on, which could be now, who knows. But actually letting go of this destination point, that life and fulfillment and all this happens at this particular spot, but it's not like, it's just like every day working on just being 1% better, you know, just 1% in terms of health and fitness, like increasing your limitation in terms of my patience with my wife or with my children, or giving them just 30 seconds more before their bedtime, or for myself, you know, taking the time for myself to actually, you know, spend 10 or 15 or 20 minutes like journaling, and not feeling like, well, I don't have time to journal right now because I've got to go and work on my business and I've got to do everything else and there's no time for Ben. But doing that and just recognizing that, you know, you don't have to put all this pressure on this end destination, because there is no end destination. The end destination is death.
Of course, absolutely. And this is something I was running a workshop for some guys in small town South Australia the other day, and that was one of the things that came up. Like, you know, if you're working towards that, the end is in a coffin. Right, and it sounds cliche, but life is a journey. It is growth and progress throughout. But there's maybe certainly a misconception, but I think a belief is that once you're an adult, that's it.
Yeah.
Right, and people work to get their lot, and they have their lot in life. But life keeps progressing, and if you look at it, it's kind of like a bell curve. We start to, you know, break down a little bit as we get older, and you know. So every day, there's the journey, right? And if we get all these goals, you don't get to a point and go, I've got them now, cool, I'm done, right? And so as long as you can realize that and take ownership of it, because that's, you know, really what we're talking about. I think probably one of the common themes both of us are talking about for us men is taking ownership of your life, taking ownership of how you come into the world, right? And working to have a richer experience of the world, and then other people's experience of you. But that'll only happen when we drop that mask and drop so much of a giving a shit about what others think. Yeah. Right? Because when we put that mask on and we cheapen it, when we dumb it down, we cheapen our experience of the world, but everyone else's experience. Yeah. Because we want to be liked by everyone. That's basically what it comes down to, right? But it's a ridiculous concept. No one can be liked by everyone, and in doing so and attempting to, we kind of hit that mediocre, right? Yes. Versus coming in real, finding our people who really connect and resonate with us, because we do, and being okay with the fact that some people are not going to be our people, and that's okay. Yeah,
that's awesome. It's well said. I think that was, again, like, you know, when I first started telling the truth and amongst the group of guys. It wasn't long. Like, I think it probably took, you know, less than a month or 2 months that these guys started to tell the fucking truth as well. Right. Their marriage, you know, these are the guys who were saying like, everything's good, everything's great. I'm going home feeling like shit and starting to do my own, you know, inquisition and going overseas to do courses to understand who I am, what's going on. And then all of a sudden you realize, like, some of my closest friends, like, on the verge of fucking divorce. Never there for their kids. They're in a state of depression, but no one was willing to, like you said right at the start, is to step out and be the first to call the fucking truth. And just truth. Like, it's a very hard, I think it's a very hard piece to grasp. I still deal with it every day. Like, I'm still calling myself out on, where am I lying? Like, where are the aspects in life that you're lying? Even the little white lies, like, everything starts to add up. Like, when someone asks you to join an event or go somewhere or something like that, and we kind of go, yeah, okay, yeah, maybe, or we'll make up a lie on why we can or cannot go. Versus, you know, I think we've learned this along the way as well. You know, like, just if you're not going to go, it's like the answer no is a statement in itself.
And that's ownership, right? That is ownership. And I think one of the things, you know, that follows on from what we're talking about as to why we don't. And, you know, with you, we give a shit, right? And so there's that fear of judgment. What are they going to think of it? Embarrassment, rejection, whatever it is. And in that moment, you know, you stepped away from that, basically, right? Yeah. And in doing so, it creates, you know, an environment. Okay. He's not afraid of being judged. Maybe that means he won't judge me and I can go too, right? But one of the things we can do is leave that unsaid. And so I think something that can really support men is actually outing it. How, actually, I'm not doing that well, or whatever it is. I'd love to share some stuff, I'm pretty shit scared about it, to be honest. Would you guys support me in just making it a judgment-free zone so I can share?
Yep.
Just ask it, right? But that again is ownership.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. So, brother, how do people get involved? Like, what's the next steps with Beyond the Beers? Like, how can men go and start this conversation?
Yeah. So look, Beyond the Beers started as a show where I sit down with another guy and we chat. We go beneath the surface, right? We have a beer, but then we actually talk about the real stuff because I think that's something that we can do, right? And that's about breaking the stereotype for me. So you can certainly go and check out the show, and that exists to really, like I said, normalize, guys having a beer that talked about more meaningful stuff. But we've turned that into an event. So we had one event last year, which was awesome, conversations and cool shit for men. So we've got 2 more coming up, one in Sydney, March the 4th, and one in Melbourne, March the 11th. And so it's a day of conversations, interviews, panel discussions, but cool shit. We have craft beer, we have gin and whiskey and health and wealth type stuff, stuff that we love, but around that kind of umbrella of connecting and being a bit more real. And so I love these days. And I'm running it, I'm part of it, but I absolutely benefit from it. This is something that fills my cup. Because I get to go and be real. I get to go and connect with some dudes. And that's why I make it, so I can also be a participant, basically. Yes. So, no, you can head to beyondthebeers.tv/event if you want to check it out. Otherwise, I would like to know a little bit more about Rising Kings.
Anyway, so the big thing that we do at the moment is like it's a 2.5-day immersive. It's called Rising Kings Code Black. It's an event that we take 6 guys out to the Blue Mountains, which is out the back of Sydney. We start on Friday night. We literally, metaphorically speaking, I hold a mirror up to every single guy that's there to understand what's the world actually seeing of you right now, because we have our own perception, then we have the reality of how our wife's actually seeing us show up, how are our children actually seeing it, our best friends, our community, our business, if we're a leader in our business, et cetera, et cetera. So, we take guys, it's application only. It's very small, it's intimate, 6 to 8 guys at any one time. You can find out more at rising-kings.com. I've got some video footage and testimonials of guys who have been through this. As I said, it's like you said before, man, it's not about keeping everyone happy. It's not for every single guy, but this is for the guy who's either stuck, lost, or has recognized you need a fucking swift kick up the ass to tackle life, but not just physically. It's physical, it's mental, it's emotional, it's spiritual. It's not sitting around a campfire singing Kumbaya. But at the same time, it's not just a commando event either. It's almost like the cross-pollination of those two. I had one guy describe it as Fight Club meets Tony Robbins. So any guy who feels connected with that type of message, let's get in touch and let's see if you're there. So, Mikey, mate.
Absolutely, because there's no fighting at Beyond the Beers.
Yes.
Well, there wasn't any physical fighting last time. No. Nice, I love it. Very cool. And it's clear to me, yeah.
Awesome.